What if the biggest invention in human history was not the wheel? What if it was a field, a quiet patch of earth, a handful of seeds, and one ancient human who looked down and thought, just for a second, what happens if I leave these here? That tiny thought changed everything. Because for most of human history, people did not grow food. They chased it, they gathered it, they hunted it. They feared the days when nothing could be found. Life was not stable. It was a race against time, weather, animals, hunger, and luck. One day there was plenty. The next day there was nothing. And when you live like that, every sunrise feels like a question. Then something changed. The world warmed. The ice began to retreat. Rivers settled into new paths. Grasslands spread. And in certain places, especially near water, the land started giving ancient humans a clue. Wild grains began to grow in places people already visited. Seeds fell near camps. Some of them sprouted, some of them returned. And humans noticed. Because survival teaches you to pay attention. When your life depends on food, you remember where every berry grew, where every animal drank, where every root was thickest, and where every seed seemed to come back. At first, nobody called it farming, nobody had a grand plan, nobody stood up and said, "Today we shall invent agriculture." It was much smaller than that, much messier, much more human. Someone dropped seeds near a camp, someone else came back later and saw plants growing. Someone noticed that plants near water did better. Someone noticed that if the land was cleared, the seeds were easier to manage. Someone noticed that protecting those plants gave more food than wandering around and hoping for the best. And slowly, the wild began to stop feeling wild. A tiny patch of ground became something else, not just land, not just dirt, a promise. Before that, humans moved constantly. They lived like sparks in the dark, appearing, disappearing, never staying long enough for the world to belong to them. They followed animals, they gathered fruit, they dug roots, they tracked seasons the way sailors track stars. They lived with movement built into every day. If the animals moved, they moved. If the berries were gone, they left. If the weather changed, they adapted. That kind of life creates sharp minds, it creates strong bodies, it creates people who can survive almost anything. But it also creates uncertainty. Because when you do not grow food, you are always one bad season away from hunger, one cold spell away from panic, one dry riverbed away from disaster. Then, near fertile rivers and valleys, some groups started staying longer, and that was the beginning of a new world, because rivers gave water, soil gave life, and wild plants kept coming back. That combination changed human behavior, not all at once, not in one dramatic moment, but little by little. Human beings began doing something astonishing. They began testing nature, not controlling it yet, just testing it. They dropped seeds, they waited, they watched, they learned. And the most powerful force in that process was not intelligence alone, it was curiosity mixed with desperation. When people are hungry, they become inventive. When survival is hard, observation becomes power. So they ask questions without words. What if we keep the seeds here? What if we water them? What if we clear the weeds? What if we protect the plants? What if we stop leaving food behind and start making food come to us? That was the real breakthrough, not the seed, the decision to trust the seed. At first, it was only a guess. Then the guess became a pattern. Seeds near water grew better. Protected plants survived more often. Cleared ground gave better results. And once people saw that, everything changed. Because now food was no longer only something you found. Food could be something you made happen. That is an enormous shift in human history. It is hard to overstate it. For the first time, humans could think ahead in a new way. They could save food. They could stay in one place longer. They could return to the same land. They could imagine tomorrow differently. And once that happened, villages began to appear. Homes stopped being temporary. Shelters became permanent. People built around fields. Children grew up in the same place. Elders stayed. Families stayed. The fire stayed. The land stayed. And suddenly, humans were no longer just passing through the world. They were shaping it. Tools changed too. A simple digging stick became useful, a sickle became valuable, baskets became necessary, storage pits became survival itself. Because once you grow food, the next problem appears immediately. Where do you put it? How do you protect it? How do you stop the rain, insects, animals, and thieves from taking it away? This is where agriculture became more than farming. It became strategy. For the first time, a harvest could create surplus, more food than you needed today, more food than you could eat at once, more food than your family alone could hold. And surplus is a strange thing. It is a gift and a temptation. Because when food becomes extra, power begins to form around it. Who stores it, who distributes it, who protects it, who decides who gets more and who gets less. That is where ownership grows. That is where inequality begins. Before surplus, everyone was only trying to survive. After surplus, some people could hold more power than others. Some people became farmers, some became traders, some became builders, some became leaders. Some controlled storage, some controlled land, some controlled labor. And once that happened, grain was no longer just grain. It became wealth, it became status, it became power, it became something worth guarding. And anything worth guarding can also become something worth fighting over. So, walls appeared, weapons appeared, conflict became more organized. Now the fight was not only against nature, it was against other humans. Agriculture gave us stability, it gave us food security, it gave us the ability to build something bigger than a wandering camp. But it also gave us new problems. Crowded villages spread disease faster. People living close together made infection easier. Animals living near humans changed health forever. Working the same land year after year created new burdens. The rhythm of life became more controlled and more exhausting. The very thing that made life safer also made it more complicated. That is the hidden price of progress. Every solution creates a new set of problems. Every victory opens a new front. And agriculture was one of the greatest victories humans ever had. Without it, there would be no large cities, no kings, no empires, no taxes, no writing, no books, no organized armies, no massive trade systems, no modern civilization. Because agriculture did not just feed people, it concentrated them, it settled them, it gave them time. And time is the raw material of civilization. If you have to spend every day searching for food, you cannot easily build a city, you cannot easily write laws, you cannot easily invent bureaucracy, you cannot easily create schools, markets, governments, or monuments. But if food can be stored, life can be organized. And once life becomes organized, history accelerates. The world that followed farming became a world of villages, then towns, then cities, then states, then empires, and all of it began with a seed. That is the strange power of agriculture. It looks simple. A plant in the ground, a hand in the soil, a basket of grain. But the consequences spread across thousands of years. Even now, every supermarket shelf is part of that story. Every loaf of bread, every bowl of rice, every grain of wheat, every meal is connected to that ancient decision to plant instead of only hunt, to stay instead of only move, to trust tomorrow, to make the earth give back. So when we look at agriculture, we should not think of it as just a technique. We should think of it as the moment humans started rewriting their own future, not all at once, not perfectly, not without cost, but permanently. Because civilization did not begin when humans built the first city. It began much earlier. It began when someone looked at a seed and saw more than food. It began when humans stopped asking only, "What can I find today?" and started asking, "What can I make grow for tomorrow?" Comment and let me know. What do you want to watch next?